welcome to Focus, Ashra Kwesi, who's a lecturer. And I thought perhaps we'd start with some background information on you, Mr. Kwesi. Your first trip to Egypt was in 1981. Why did you go, and what happened?
The reason why I made the trip, I had done a lot of reading and research on African history, and coming across some of the first books was Dr. Yosef Ben-Jochannan, The Black Man of the Nile, The Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, and Chancellor Williams, Destruction of Black Civilization. After reading these books, I was very inspired, and I wanted to see an eyewitness account what African people had done thousands of years ago. And it was in 1981 I made this trip with a man named Dr. Yosef Ben-Jochannan. He takes many people back every year to the Nile Valley, as we call this area. And it is here we were able to have an eyewitness account of the ancient African civilization that started in the beginning of the Nile, which we call the Great Lakes region, where it reached its zenith in the area of Egypt, which the ancient name was called Kemet Nu.
Mm-hmm. Now, this Dr. Jochannan, he has written books, evidently, about Egypt. And how long ago was it that he began to take these trips? Was 1981 first trip, or had he been taking excursions before then?
Dr. Yosef Ben-Jochannan himself has been going to Africa since 1933. In fact, he's from Ethiopia, okay? He moved to the west, to the Caribbean, when he was a child and grew up there. But it was Dr. Ben, after taking also an interest in history and religion, and he has degrees in many other areas, but it's this area that he emphasized on the history of African people. From then on, he has taken many African Americans back to the Nile Valley, back to the land of Egypt. So we can witness where a lot of the accounts that we get from the Bible, a lot of things that we believe that the Greeks started, where in fact it started right in Africa.
At what point after meeting him did you want to seek, or were you inspired to want to know more about the origin of the African civilization?
I think from the first moment I picked up his book and I think the first 2 chapters. In fact, one of my favorite, in fact, it was the first book that I came in contact was The Black Man of the Nile. And in fact, as you can see, mine is a little worn.
It is worn.
And it is here where he has the Nile coming up out of the interior of Africa, where he shows where the zenith of the African civilization reached in the land of Egypt. And he's written other books, The Black Man of the Nile and His Family, of course, which is this one, and We the Black Jews. In fact, Dr. Ben is a Falasha himself, or which the name that the Falashans themselves would we call Beta Israel. He's written also The African Origin of Major Western Religions, and on and on and on. The man is he's written many, many books. After making the first trip, I can't say in words what the trip did for me. It was from this point I can honestly say that I felt that I had to do something. I also had a responsibility to bring this information back to African Americans, to share this with them, of the origins, in fact, of civilization, the foundation of civilization. And it is here, after coming back, extending my research, and putting together a slide presentation where I more or less started lecturing myself throughout the country.
And, well, that's a good intro into the slides. Let's begin with the first 2 slides.
Here we have the world's first multi-genius, Imhotep. Unfortunately, again, we cannot see his head, but that gives an account also in Egypt, because we can see how Europeans even knocked off his head on some of the monuments and temples, so we see it viewed on television the same way. But here we see that we're taught in schools and universities that Hippocrates was the father of medicine. But yet here we see, going way back during the 3rd dynastic period, that Zoser, okay, who was the pharaoh, commissioned Imhotep, okay, to build this first step pyramid, or the first colossal building. So here he was a multi-genius. In fact, he was a poet. The terms we get, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, goes all the way back to Imhotep. He even knew the circulation of the blood long before Europeans even knew what blood was all about. Okay. Also, long before Galileo, he also knew and studied the stars.
Next slide.
We go on to see that here's an account of Oni, and Oni is This is taken from the book of Coming Forth by Day and by Night, as I said, derogatory name, the Book of the Dead. As only as coming through the judgment scene, you can see to the right that his hair is black, led by Horus. Now, we also get an account that we don't understand that Egyptians worship animals. They did not worship animals. They were just various attributes of nature, the same thing as that you may see in the Judeo-Christian religion today relating to certain animal figures that represent various attributes or symbols of various things. But it only comes before the god Osiris, who is to the extreme left. You notice only kneeling down in the middle, his hair turns white as he comes before the god Osiris. I point this out because one of the characteristics of Moses, that when he went up to see God on the mountaintop, his hair turned white.
I see. Okay, next slide.
Here we have an account of an Immaculate Conception. Here we see the Immaculate Conception story going back 4,100 years BC. And this is taken from the temple of Seti-Wan, where Isis, okay, comes in the form of a bird. And she descends on top of Osiris's penis. Fortunately, this is the only one left, showing where she's taking the seed from Osiris to carry back to her womb. The first story known of an Immaculate Conception story known to mankind. Here we see the goddess, the first black goddess, okay, or Madonna, named Isis, who is lactating her child Horus, who Osiris comes back in the form of Horus, okay. So here we see Madonna and child going back 4,100 years BC, still documented in Egypt. In fact, it was Justinian who closed down the temple of Isis on Philae in Upper Egypt, okay, and from here they more or less plagiarized or copied, okay, the Osirian drama, okay, for the African religion, and this is where we get the accounts of today.
Is that the last one?
Here we see how this was chiseled out. We see how Isis, during the time of the Coptics, okay, Justinian, in the 6th century AD, where they tried to chisel out the Immaculate Conception story, because here, recorded in Egypt, it told of the first Immaculate Conception story told. In fact, where this one was copied out of Africa to make the European concept that we have today.
Is that why they tried to chisel it out?
Right. This is, in fact, all over the temple. We saw it was continuously everywhere. The Medu Necher, or who the Greeks called the hieroglyphs, continuously was chiseled out. In fact, this Madonna and child is of Isis right here, where this one was chiseled out. But they carved endlessly throughout the monument, so all of them were not destroyed.
The Black Madonna is the one that that amazes me. Why is it that we haven't heard more about this concept?
Well, there's many reasons for that, and I guess the one area that I have to zero in and deal with the nucleus of it is that for this to come through, for black people to see the Black Madonna and child, we would enable us to see a better image of ourselves. And we see this was suppressed, okay? As many other things were suppressed. As I always say, you cannot take a people and put them in slavery and then not take the knowledge either. And this was basically what was done.
Well, in terms of research, how would you sum up your findings, having been, say, to Egypt and all of these other countries that relate to your interpretation of religion now?
I think there's another world other than the world that we have known, okay? When the Greeks first came into Africa, Thales, one of the first, okay, it was the African priests who said that they were children in the concept of what the Greeks called the mysteries. Why they called it a mysteries? Because they did not understand the sciences at that particular time. And as one of the terms, as we say, seek and ye shall find. And on all the Egyptian temples it was stated, know thyself. This was the key to true knowledge. This was the key to finding one's soul. Okay, this was the key to the true resurrection. Okay, when knowledge is suppressed, even though it may be suppressed, one must seek, because you cannot wipe out the truth. It is all there, in which we documented along the Nile through some of the slides we just went through.
Do most religions have their interpretations of the Bible?
Their interpretations of the Bible coming from King James Version, but we have to go back to where the King James Version comes from. As I said, King James Version, his version. In fact, it tells you on the first page that the book was translated. Translated from what? It goes back to the Latin Vulgate version of the Bible, because James, because of his promiscuous behaviors, rebelled against the Pope of Rome. Where did the Pope of Rome get the Latin Vulgate Bible? We can go all the way back to the Koine Bible, to the Septuagint Bible, the first Greek Bible, who that Bible was written in Egypt, in a place called Alexandria. During the time of Alexandria, here we can see that they destroyed the Temple of On and built the Library of Alexandria, and they took, during the Ptolemy period, and commissioned Jews to write the Septuagint version of the Bible, which was translated from the Pentateuch, what is called the first 5 books of Moses, written in 700 years BC, that goes all the way back to the book of Coming Forth by Day and by Night, what is called the derogatory name, the Book of the Dead, written 4,100 years BC, and it was revised.
And we're out of time. Thank you so very much for
Thank
this
you.
enlightenment. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.